Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Strongman competitor Colton Sloan is Western Canada's strongest man for a second year in a row. At 6'3" and 300 pounds, Sloan, who is from the Whitefish Lake First Nation, is also Canada's first Indigenous man to earn a pro card as a strongman. His professional career skyrocketed since his national amateur performance in 2021. He joins the ranks of a handful of Indigenous professional strongmen who reached top honors at competitions. We'll speak with some of them right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Jill Freitas. California is moving forward with what could become the second largest tribal land return in state history. The California State Water Resources Control Board has approved $25 million in financing to help the Quartz Valley Indian Reservation acquire nearly 40,000 acres of the Scott River headwaters in Northern California's Klamath River Basin. The acquisition would return ancestral lands that include salmon-bearing streams, cultural sites, forests, and critical drinking water resources to tribal stewardship. Quartz Valley Indian Reservation Chairman Leonard Lincoln says the project marks a truly historic moment for the tribe. He says, for a tribe that was once terminated and subsequently confined to just 2,000 acres, reclaiming nearly 40,000 acres of our ancestral territory is a monumental victory that secures our sovereignty and our people's future. The acquisition is being supported by Trust for Public Land and the current landowner, EFM Investments and Advisory. Trust for Public Land says returning the land to tribal stewardship will help protect clean water, restore salmon habitat, improve forest health, and strengthen climate resilience throughout the Klamath River Basin while expanding opportunities for cultural access, ecological restoration, and conservation jobs. The Trump administration is considering a complete or partial reversal of a 20-year federal mineral ban on new oil and gas leasing that protects New Mexico's Greater Chaco region, and time for public comment is running out. Ross Brown explains.
The Trump administration is considering a complete or partial reversal of a 20-year federal mineral ban on new oil and gas leasing that protects New Mexico's Greater Chaco region, and time for public comment is running out. The Department of the Interior says revoking protections on a landscape that holds cultural importance for Indigenous people could boost oil production by more than 2 million barrels over the next 20 years. The New Mexico Wildlife Federation's Jesse Dubell says despite the importance of oil and gas to New Mexicans' livelihood and the state's economy, some things are priceless.
It's really important to understand that there are some places where it is absolutely inappropriate to risk destruction of sacred sites for the idea that there might be some amount of oil and gas underneath that mineral estate.
The administration is looking at 3 options. Keep a current 10-mile buffer in place, cut it to 5 miles, or revoke it entirely, which could destroy artifacts and architecture. It argues maximizing fossil fuel production through increased drilling could lower utility and fuel costs and bolster national security. The public has until this Wednesday to comment online through the Bureau of Land Management's NEPA webpage. The Federation's Andrew Black, a public lands field director in New Mexico, says there's a good reason Chaco is designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of only 24 such sites in the U.S.
19th to 13th century complex Pueblo cultural settlements with multi-story houses, sacred sites. The architecture is truly unbelievable. Just from that perspective alone, it is remarkable.
Last week, the New Mexico congressional delegation called on Interior Secretary Doug Burgum to extend the public comment period to 90 days, conduct tribal consultation, and allow extensive public engagement before making a decision. Black says it's the least that should be done.
After various archaeological surveys and studies, that area was determined to have the greatest amount of cultural resources within it. More study and more examination and more analysis needed to be done within that buffer zone.
The buffer zone is home to bobcats, pronghorn, elk and deer, coyotes, bald eagles, small mammals, and various reptiles. New Mexico Senator Martin Heinrich calls on the Interior Department to reconsider its oil and gas proposal and honor the public land order approved by the Biden administration in 2023. This is Roz Brown.
And I'm Jill Freitas.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
The Indian Arts and Crafts Board promotes Indian artists of federally recognized tribes through its online source directory. Information on this no-charge opportunity available at doi.gov/IACB, who support this program. Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. At 45, Chickasaw citizen Jerry Pritchett continues to train as a professional strongman. Since 2011, Pritchett has established himself as one of the sport's top competitors, winning the All-American Strongman, claiming the Arnold Strongman Classic title, and reaching the finals of the world's Strongest Man competition. He has deadlifted more than 1,000 pounds and bench pressed over 600 pounds. He's recently shifted to coaching his teenage son, Bubba, who is already making a name for himself in the sport. In Canada, the strongman career for Whitefish Lake First Nation member Colton Sloan continues to rise. He recently earned the title of Western Canada's Strongest Man for a second consecutive year. In competitions, Sloan has lifted stones weighing well over 400 pounds and pushing semi-trucks weighing 15,000 pounds and more. We'll speak with Pritchett and Sloan and also hear from retired Lumbee strongman Harold Iron Bear Collins, who's broken 6 Guinness World Records. Listeners, you can join today's conversation with a comment or a question. Call us at 1-800-996-2848. Let us know what's your thoughts. Perhaps you are a fan of strongman competitions. You can join the conversation. Again, that number is 1-800-996-2848. Joining us now on the phone from Victoriaville, Quebec in Canada is Colton Sloan. He is a professional strongman and citizen of Whitefish Lake First Nation. Colton, hello, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Joining us on Zoom while traveling through Columbus, Ohio, is Jerry Pritchett. He is a professional strongman and a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation. Hello, Jerry, and welcome to Native America Calling.
All right, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And also joining us on Zoom today from Pembroke, North Carolina, is Harold Iron Bear Collins. He is a retired professional strongman and a power lifter. He is a citizen of the Lumbee tribe. Iron Bear, hello, and welcome to Native America Calling to you too.
I'm doing very fine, and I hope y'all guys are doing fine too.
I'm doing fine as well. Thank you for asking, Iron Bear. Now, Colton, I want to begin with you. You just competed in a top strongman competition in Quebec. North America's Strongest Man is the title. Some of North America's strongest athletes were represented there. Tell us more about your experience and the events you competed in.
Yeah, so North America's Strongest Man is probably one of the heaviest shows in the world, and we did some really cool events this year. We got to pull a tractor, like a literal farm tractor, which was probably the hardest truck pull I've ever done. We loaded stones to 56 inches, which is really high. I lifted some electric vehicles. It's always a good time in Victoriaville.
Well, those EVs I know those batteries are heavy, so I imagine that's a challenge. Now, you refer to it as a heavy show. What do you mean by that, a heavy show? Is it just the objects are heavy? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Well, the weights that JF Karan, he's the legendary Canadian strongman, the weights he selected are always heavy because he wants to see who is the strongest man in the continent. So, like, the deadlift was 800 pounds, and that was for repetitions. So I think the winning reps was around 12 reps. So we like to make it heavy because we really want to see who is the strongest.
Yeah, for sure. Colton, what goes into preparing for an event like this? I mean, stones, pulling tractors, EVs. What's training like?
Yeah, well, I'd say I train 7 days a week, but 5 of them is specifically strongman training, like weightlifting, deadlifting, flipping tires, pulling trucks. But the other 2 is more mobility, like stretching and cardio. Because as a strongman, it's not just about being able to pull trucks. You also have to have the gas tank in your lungs to pull the truck the set distance.
Colton, you've been very candid about how being in strongman competitions, it's gotten you through difficult periods of your life, mental health struggles. Tell me more about how it has shaped you as a person since you first started this.
Yeah, well, I started strongman in 2018, and within that same year, my wife at the time, she's since passed, she got diagnosed with cancer the same year we started strongman. And it really did help me get through that because she fought for 4 hard years, and she watched me turn pro, and that means a lot to me because she was also an Indigenous woman. So it really helped me get through that, and it helped a lot with the mental health side of things because it's just the community is great, and just working and proving to be one of the best in the world really helps you guide you through some stuff that you wouldn't think it would.
Colton, 5 years ago, you were the first Indigenous man to earn a pro card in Canada. Tell me what kind of work went into earning that professional card, and why do you think there's not more Indigenous people in this sport?
It took a lot of work to get there. It took a lot of work to get to that level. And then the way I looked at it was like, okay, now I'm a professional. I'm the newest professional, so that means I went from one of the strongest amateurs to one of the weakest professionals. Is the way I looked at it. And then, sorry, what was the next question?
Why don't we see more Indigenous representation in strongman competitions?
Yeah, well, I ask myself that every day because I look at the Indigenous people around me, like my family members, my friends, and I'm like, man, we're all like very large people and very strong. But I think it's just a matter of the exposure to the sport. So that's what I'm trying to do in Canada is expose Indigenous people to the sport and show them like, hey, like we can do this. We are strong and we are here.
Colton, lifting weights, what's different about these types of objects, these types of very specific lifts as opposed to just lifting with barbells and dumbbells and things like it? It seems like a very different type of discipline.
Yeah, I think I look at it as it's a true test of like strength because it's not just a fixed barbell; it's odd objects and like for instance, like a truck pull. You're pulling a truck for a certain amount of distance and it's heavy and it's hard and you can't breathe and your legs are burning and everything hurts, but you got to keep going. So it's a real test of overall human strength.
Colton, what's it like doing this as a living? The traveling, how often do you compete, and what all goes into building name recognition?
Yeah, well, I compete. This year, I've been competing pretty much every 2 or 3 weeks, it's just a stage in my career that I'm at. And the traveling, I love traveling. I love seeing the world. Coming from the background I come from, I wouldn't have thought that I'd be traveling, seeing the world the way that I am, just through lifting weights. So I'm very grateful and very thankful for it.
What about the rest? Seems like that's a really, really rigorous schedule to be competing almost twice a month like that. How are you able to rest and recover in between?
Yeah, well, I'm remarried. I've married again, and I'd have to give a lot of that credit to my wife now. She does a lot for me. This wouldn't be possible without her support, and that's for sure.
Colton, one of your favorite lifts is the yoke. Break that down for us, for any listeners that might not be familiar with the yoke. How does it work? And tell me more about the training that goes into it.
Yeah, yoke is just a giant crossbar that we load a bunch of weights onto it. Upwards of 1,000 pounds plus. And it's extremely heavy and it squishes your spine, but you have to have the grit and strength to walk or run with it. And the training going to that is like heavy squats, like belt squat marches, just a lot of heavy leg movements. Because you look at a strongman and you think it's all upper body, but if that's not the case, we squat and we carry yokes that are insanely heavy.
Colton, just hearing you describe that, I can feel the pain already, just squishing your spine. It just hurts me just saying it. Injuries, how do you prevent them? What goes into that? Because I imagine, that much weight, any given time, or something could just break.
Yeah, injuries are a big part of strongman. And like I was saying, I train 7 days a week. 2 of those days are cardio and stretching, and I think that's where a lot of guys come short, is the stretching and the mobility work to prevent those injuries. It's probably the worst of the training is the stretching, because stretching hurts. It's not fun, but it definitely prevents the injuries as much as possible. But strongman being as heavy as it is and the crazy sport that it is, it's going to happen. It's part of the game. You just got to be able to come back from it.
Colton, what about your diet? I understand you consume over 7,000 calories a day.
Yeah, that's kind of my minimum is 7,000 calories. I have a nutrition coach, so he kind of just tells me what to eat, when to eat it, and I just follow what he says. And it's a lot of meat, a lot of rice. One of my favorite carbohydrates is sweet potato, so I eat a lot of that. Whole eggs, the basic stuff, the Rocky type stuff, eggs and meat.
How many meals do you eat a day?
7 or 8.
So you're eating like every hour.
There's some small meals in there, like some people consider it a meal. I consider it a snack.
What's a snack for you?
Like some yogurt, like Greek yogurt with some granola and a protein shake, maybe a banana with it. Like half a tub, I would say.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and continue our conversation today with Colton Sloan, along with our other strongman guests. The phone lines are open. Let's get some calls going. I know some listeners here are very much enjoying this conversation we're having with Colton, learning about the sport of strongman, what goes into competing in a sport like this, and just the intensity, lifting heavy stones, pulling tractors and other types of vehicles, heavy equipment. Lots to talk about here. Short break and we'll be right back. This is Sean Spruce, host of Native America Calling. You can listen in every weekday to hear the only national call-in show from a Native American perspective. We explore topics that range from traditional cultural practices to up-to-the-minute news that affects every American. We hope you can join us for the next Native America Calling.
Grand Canyon Conservancy fosters visitor engagement with the landscape through learning, discovery, and stewardship. The Grand Canyon Conservancy Field Institute provides immersive and educational adventures designed in partnership with Grand Canyon National Park, including day hikes for the family, once-in-a-lifetime backpacking trips, and art classes with expert instructors. More at grandcanyon.org. Grand Canyon Conservancy supports this show.
Thank you for tuning in today to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce, and we are speaking with Indigenous strongman competitors from different parts of the U.S. and Canada about the training and skill of their sport. Are you a fan of strength competitions? If so, you can join this conversation with a comment or question. Call us at 1-800-996-2848. That is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. And you can also post a comment on our website, nativeamericacalling.com, and our various social media pages. Our next guest joins us now from Columbus, Ohio, Jerry Pritchett. He is a professional strongman and a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation. And Jerry, you have held multiple national and world strongman records. Tell us what's behind your success.
A lot of hard work, a lot of hours and hours of training, and a lot of dedication, especially for the bulk of all of my career. I strongman was a second job. I worked in a fabrication shop for 9 hours a day. Then I would, train the second half of the day. So it was brutal to keep up with both, but it's what I always tell people: if you want something, if you make it happen, no matter what.
Jerry, you're famous for the deadlift. Describe that event for us, and also, what have been some of your most memorable competitions?
So a typical standard deadlift is from 9 inches off the floor. And some of my best deadlifts, I pulled 1,031 here in Columbus at the Arnold Classic back in 17 on the Rogue Elephant Bar. Which was a world record at the time, 1,031. I pulled 1025 on a regular deadlift bar at the deadlift championships in England in 16. I've pulled 1160 on a Hummer tire deadlift, which is from 13 inches with a bunch of Hummer tire wheels and tires on it at the first Shaw Classic in 20. I was fourth at World's Strongest Man in 20, just a few weeks before I was 40 years old. I've won America's Strongest Man back in 17. I had the Guinness World Record on a 1,100-pound frame carry up a ramp that I did in Rome back in 18. Quite a bit. It's pretty cool. My strength is taking me all over the world. I've literally been all over the world with competing, which is something I never would have done without my strength. So it's been pretty cool. And now passing it on to my son. He has a passion for it, maybe even greater than mine. I mean, he's been in the gym since he's 5 years old. Started powerlifting when he was 8 or 9. Started doing strongman when he was 12 or 13, and he's 15 years old now, and without a doubt, the strongest teenager in the world. He deadlifts over 600 pounds. He's pulled 625. He did a 315 axle press the other day. He's my height, 350 pounds. He's bigger than I am now.
That's amazing. What about the bench press?
My best bench in a powerlifting meet with a single ply bench shirt, I did 617. My best without a bench shirt is 550. And
Tell us about the bench shirt.
My best bench shirt is a really tight material that has a little bit of spring to it. So years ago, the bench shirt was designed just to help protect your shoulders and pecs from tearing pecs and shoulders. The bench shirt has evolved over the years where there's lifters now getting several hundred pounds or more out of shirts. They've gotten a little bit out of hand. That's why I say I was in a single ply. It wasn't anything crazy, not like some of these canvas bench shirts that they have now. But it's just kind of how the sport of powerlifting has evolved now with equipment. It's kind of got more about the equipment than the strength. There's still raw powerlifting that are putting up some amazing numbers, a lot of good lifters, but some of the equipped and then there's some big numbers, but it gets a little carried away with equipment.
Okay. Jerry, I'm looking at many pictures of you online. One of them, you're lifting those huge tires you described. Those tires are bigger than you. I mean, they're like 7 feet in diameter. Those things are giant. Now, you started out as a power lifter, and then you transitioned into strongman. Why did you make that change?
Yeah, so I started powerlifting. I mean, really not even in by intent. I went into a powerlifting gym to get bigger and stronger for football when I was 15, and the guy that owned it, Michael Winetti, was a seasoned world champion powerlifter, and he was putting on a teenage nationals that weekend. I walked in there on a Monday, and he's like, you want to do the competition this weekend? And I knew very little. There was a buddy of my dad's that was working on a race car that he had been training there and started doing some powerlifting. So we were kind of hearing about it, but I really didn't know much about it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, what I got to do. So I got a brief rundown. This is how you bench, this is how you squat, this is how you deadlift. And I trained every day that week. That Friday, I walked in to train, and Mike told me, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm here to train. He goes, you got to meet tomorrow. Go home. So I did the meet, and it was, and I said, my intention was just to get bigger and stronger for football. And I did that first powerlifting meet, and I was instantly hooked. because it was, football. I like playing football, but you can have your best game of your life, and if the quarterback has a bad game, you guys lose, or whatever. Where powerlifting and strongman, it's all on you. If you have a bad day, it's all on you. You got to look yourself in the mirror that you had the bad day, and I like that. I like it's just me. And so I instantly fell in love with powerlifting. Did powerlifting for years. I went to Junior Olympics 3 times. Won gold medal Junior Olympics as a teenager. And then through my 20s, because I grew up around a racing background, I started driving sprint cars, racing sprint cars. So powerlifting had taken a little bit of a backseat, even though I was still doing it, but not as much. And then there was I'd always loved strongman. I always watched it. Especially years ago through the 90s when you could watch it on ESPN all the time. Watch Iron Bear compete and Magnus and all those guys, and always loved it. Just never had the opportunity. There wasn't, didn't know how to get into it. And there was a local comp in Phoenix where I'm from, and one of the guys had saw it advertised somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, let's go do it. And we had started training some strongman movements for our powerlifting, because we were noticing a carryover. The dynamic movements we did in strongman movements like farmer's carry and yoke and things like that, we could see a carryover to the platform in our static strength. So we'd already been doing some events. So I did that strongman in Phoenix, and then again, it was like instantly hooked, and it kind of reignited that love for lifting again, because I kind of had gotten bored with powerlifting a little bit. Like I said, so I was racing sprint cars, and that actually my first strongman competition, I raced my sprint car that night. And I remember halfway through the main event, my back was killing me. I was praying for that race to be over with, because sitting in that seat after doing a strongman competition was not a smart move. And then, so it wasn't shortly after that, I parked the sprint car and just started focused on strongman. And after a few amateur strongman competitions, I was like, I really think I can do this if I really put all my focus into it. And that was in 2008. I did my first pro show in 2011. And then I went to the World's Strongest Man the first time in 2012, and then the Arnold Classic in 2013, and competed every year up from that up until the last few years. I had a hip replacement a couple of years ago. It's kind of taken me out here for a while, and so I'm just enjoying training again and training my son and having fun with lifting.
Jerry, where all have you traveled for competitions? I'm thinking Europe, other parts of the world.
Yeah, all through Europe. My first Giants Live, which is a World's Strongest Man qualifier, was in Poland. And then we did World's Strongest Man in San China, Malaysia, and with the Arnold Classic. When there was a circuit for the Arnold Classic, we went everywhere. We'd have a show, and you would do the Arnold Classic in Columbus, 1st of March, and then 2 weeks later you'd be in Australia. Then a few weeks later after that, into April, you would be in Brazil, in either Rio or Sao Paulo. And then you'd have Spain towards the end of the summer. And then they started adding Santa Monica Pier. Then they'd have North America's up in Canada that Colton was just talking about. That used to be a part of the Arnold circuit years ago. I've been to Rome, where I did the frame carry for Guinness. They filmed that in Rome at the studio there for Guinness. And
well, let's talk about the Guinness World Records.
We did Dubai in end of 19. There was a big competition in Dubai. I've been a lot of places, been all over the world.
Guinness World Records. You carried 1,110 pounds up an incline. Tell us more about that record.
Yeah, so it was something similar that has been done at the Arnold Classic since the start of the Arnold Classic, back in the early 2000s. And just Guinness wanted to make it their own, so they built somewhat of a replica ramp, which is just probably a little more incline than what they have here in Columbus. And they invited 3 of us, 3 of what they thought of the best for frame, guys who do frame carry at the time, and I was the only one to complete it and get the fastest time.
And Jerry, you shared earlier.
It's a brutal. Take 1,100 pounds up a ramp that's a brutal feat.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at all these pictures online, different events, different competitions. It's just on another level.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we
Jerry,
did
you
it,
talked.
the Arnold in 17. We did, Colton was talking about yoke earlier. We did a bale tote, which was big cotton bales on the yoke. And we went up, there was 2 rounds. The second round was 1,565 pounds was the second round. That's still the heaviest frame carry done in competition. Only 4 of us completed it.
Jerry, you had talked earlier about the metal fabrication work that you do, and tell us more about that. You design gym equipment.
Yeah, I grew up in a fab shop. My dad had a fab shop in Phoenix, and I grew up in a fab shop. And I went to work for a public utility for about 16, 17 years. I ran the fab shop for the transportation department there. So the bulk of my career, I worked there. And then since then, when I had the issue with my hip and that, and I left there to get my hips fixed, and then now I have my own fab shop in Phoenix, and then I do a lot of work with Rogue Fitness now. Actually, that's why I'm in Columbus now, building some equipment for the Rogue Invitational in Scotland in October. I built some equipment last year for the Invitational, and then there's a couple pieces that I've designed that Rogue, like the Pritchett pad. It's a pad for doing chest-supported rows and anything chest-supported work off a rack. I make the Pritchett tank, which is for mobility and body temping. And then I've made my own equipment for years. Years ago, because years ago you didn't just go to Rogue or somewhere and buy a log press or a yoke. So usually I had to find somebody to make it, which it was always a benefit that I could make all my own stuff.
Jerry, do you come across other indigenous strongmen in your travels and competitions?
Not very many. I did an event back in May up around Four Corners, and there was indigenous. He's powerlifter, strongman. He put on a competition with just more powerlifting type movements with bench press and deadlift. But he's really trying to generate some interest up there. There's really not many. There was a guy a few years ago that I believe was from New Mexico. He had turned pro. He seemed like he was kind of coming up, and then I'm not sure what happened. He just haven't really heard anything from him, which that happens to a lot of guys. They start into it and they start going, because strongman, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of your time and a lot of you. So it's brutal. It's not only the time that it takes, but what it takes out of you physically and mentally, and you got to have a really great training partners and family around you to help support that. And some guys just don't. You have to embrace the grind of it. Like when I work in a fab shop, I work 9 hours in a fab shop. I had to drive an hour each way to work, and still train for 3 hours a night in the gym and get, your eating in and all that. So bulk of my career, I slept 4 or 5 hours a night, but it's the way it had to be done. Because if I wanted to do it, this is the way it had to be done. I had 2 little kids, and it's just the way it had to be done. And sometimes not everyone, can embrace that grind year in and year out. It takes a lot out of you. And so I'm not sure why there's not more in the sport, because, as a size and strength of people, I mean, it could really favor, but it's a very tough sport. So it just takes a very few percent that can do this, day in, day out, year after year, and be consistent and keep pushing.
And Jerry, your 15-year-old son who's making huge success as a strongman, what advice do you give him?
The biggest thing with him right now is just being consistent, be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. It's always been like this with him, for the longest time when he was little, doing it when he was younger, was to do the movements proper, to learn the proper techniques. Because a lot of lifters, when they start doing lifts the wrong way, it's hard to correct later. And so that was the biggest thing, don't worry about the weight right now, just worry about the techniques. And, and he's been in the gym so long, it's odd to say that a 15-year-old has more experience than some of our pros that we have right now. But he's been around it so long in the gym, and he's had a really great crew of guys, because there's been, several other pro strongmen that, that train with me and that, mentor him, so he's been involved in that for so long that, he has that, like I said, he did an open men competition last week in Vegas, which is open men. It's heavyweight men, any age, and all the guys were in their late 20s probably, and he won it. He was third in deadlift, and he won the other 4 events. But like I said, he had more experience than those guys because they probably have been doing it, 2 or 3 years. And like I said, he's been in the gym way longer than that. And so, but it's just, just being consistent. Don't get greedy. Listen to your body, because you're, some injuries, your body will tell you when it's coming, that, hey, you need to cool it, you need to pull off the throttle. Unfortunately, some just happen, but, some you can be smart. And then you have to have that. And then once you start really in the grind and pushing and you're training for a show, you have to have those serious conversations with yourself that, okay, am I on the verge of getting hurt that I really need to back off the throttle? Or, am I
Jerry, we're going to have to take a short break, and we'll come back and continue this conversation. Stay with us, listeners.
Tribal Development Partners, helping tribes build toward their goals through 105L leasing and essential facility development, empowering sovereignty, strengthening community. More at tribaldevpartners.com, proud supporters of this show.
Kaufman & Associates is a Native-owned and led consulting firm supporting Native communities with culturally grounded solutions to shape Indigenous futures. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
We're glad you're with us today on Native America Calling. We will continue now our conversation with Native professional strongmen about their sport and more. And a reminder, you can listen to this show and all past shows on our website, nativeamericacalling.com, and all major podcast platforms. Our next guest joins us now from Pembroke, North Carolina, Harold Iron Bear Collins, a professional strongman and power lifter. And Iron Bear, you have had a legendary career as a strongman, and we just heard Jerry Pritchett mention you on ESPN, and I remember watching you on ESPN back in the 90s. It was pretty cool seeing you compete back in those days. Now, you have set 6 Guinness World Records. What's been the most memorable highlight of your career?
Sitting here thinking, it just goes way back. I was born in 1957, and back in those days, mostly you only had a few highways, and you lived on dirt roads and stuff. So I came up. I had people in my family that was always pushing to be strong, and that was my thing, to be strong. And so I started training when I was 13 years old. And listen, you got ups and downs anytime you're training. My father was a contractor, so I had to work building houses and framing houses and stuff. And so we left there, and finally, no Native Americans doing anything, wasn't even getting into football, basketball. And my thing is, we didn't have no gyms and stuff. And so what I decided I was going to put together the first gym. So I opened up my first gym in 1982. And I left from there and got bigger and bigger in the gym wise. And I was in the powerlifting in 82. And I went to the nationals 3 times. The third time I won. But it was tough. And so during those days, it was tough on the Native American. I'm just going to listen. I don't know if you kept up with Jim Thorpe. I was sort of living the same life Jim Thorpe was. I remember I won 3 United States national champions, and I just so happened to be in this tent changing my clothes at the Nationals, and I heard these 2 judges on the other side say, "It's time for him to go home." I said, "Oh my God, it's time for that Indian to go home." And so I went and talked to my sponsor and told him, I said, "I'm going to have problems." And he said, "Well, watch these guys." And so they got me on the squat, said my elbow touched the side of my pant, my powerlifting suit. That wasn't true. And started from there and went to bench. Normally I'm benching around 700. And on that day, something just told me I better not go that high. So I went to 602, I think it was. And I strained my left shoulder coming up, and they red lighted me. And I got up and I said, "There's too much weight on the left side." And 2 judges got arguing with me. And I was ready to kick Bucks in. And the lady jumps up and said, "It's 15 pounds too much on the left-hand side." And then that's when they started knowing they was cheating. And that was my last year. I barely won the Nationals that year. I think I won by 5 pounds. And
Iron Bear, so, the type of practices that you're describing here, these judges treating you unfairly.
Yeah.
Does that still occur in the sport, or has it changed since you started?
Well, it depends. I remember, I sort of, now USPF was the biggest. It was the biggest in United States and overseas. And when I quit the USPF, they kept trying to call them to get me back into it. It went down like the Titanic. I mean, it left. And I got invited to the World Strong. It took them 6 months to find me. And they had saw me in England. I was competing, and they saw me in England, the Worlds. And so I went over to Scotland and stayed there 6 weeks, and I qualified. There was a lot of athletes there. And I was number 5 qualifier. And they had us in a field now, and we were pulling a transfer truck in mud. I pulled that truck, I say about 10 feet. And the rest of them didn't even move it. And the wheels are just bogging down in the mud. So, yeah, but, overseas is not so bad. They're trying to keep the Europeans winning at that time. And, but over here, I remember they wanted, ESPN wanted me at the Vegas in 97. And I had hurt my back up in Holland. And I came home and I got a phone call, and they said, "You're not going to be invited to the United States Strongest Man." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'm hurt my back. I don't need to go anyway." And I said, "Can you tell me why I'm not being invited?" He said, "Well, they said you wasn't good enough." I said, "Okay, that's fair enough." And so I hung up the phone. And about an hour later, my phone rang, and ESPN said, "Chief, you ready?" I said, "Ready for what?" And I said, "Ready for the strongman." I said, "No." I said, "I just got a phone call saying that I wasn't good enough to be there." And he said, "Who called you?" I said, "Howell Connolly." And he said, "Do not leave that phone." So they called Howell Connolly and asked him, "Do you want to keep that job?" He said he better get his butt back on the phone, and he better call me and get me there. And he didn't care how he got me there.
Okay.
So he called me, and I went. Yeah, there's cheating still going on now.
Iron Bear, it just sounds like an intense sport. Just a lot on the line here. Let's go back to the 1990s, because like we were talking about with ESPN.
That was 97, yeah.
Yeah, and the sport was huge. You see a lot of competitions on television. Walk us through that time, just the evolution of the sport, and how healthy do you think the sport is now? Is it as popular as it once was? Why or why not?
Well, no, I don't. I think it's sort of dropping a little bit. Back around 93 is my first competition. they went heavy on everything. It was like heavy, and they started lightening it up as the years went by. I say around 96, where you do repetitions. Well, the repetitions would kill you too. There's no difference in lifting something heavy and doing a bunch of repetitions. So overseas wasn't so bad, but when you got here in the United States, it was a little different. A lot of prejudice, you know what I mean? So, but I actually, when I got there, they said, "Who's this old man?" I was 42 years old at the United States strongest man, but looking at me, you would never know I was the oldest. You know what I mean? Because I don't age. I don't age fast. And when the competition was over with, they cheated me 3 times. Treated me on the bus pool, on the sumo wrestling. I won an event in the sumo wrestling. I finished fourth. Said, I ought to tell you something. If you guys watched the Strongman and watched it in '97, they said I was a fast winner, so they put me in fourth place. And when I come to find out it was Mark Philippi, they had a bet going on at Vegas, and Mark Philippi was going to win the United States Strongest Man. So there's no way in the world I could have ever won. That was the fact. And so you had some judges, and Hal Conley was never involved in that. It was the judges and Milo Magazine. I don't know if y'all guys ever heard of Milo Magazine, but he was involved in it. They had bid a bunch of money that Mark Philippi would win the United States Strongest Man. But anyway, I didn't care. I didn't care much of a grudge. I just let it go. And me and him went on to the World's Strongest Man. We done 12 events. We was pretty well gone, and we had to compete in the overall, and it was brutal, believe it or not. But we still done pretty good.
Iron Bear, I remember one time when I was watching you on ESPN back in the 90s, one of the competitions, you and the other strongmen, you had to hang on a bar over a swimming pool, and you just had to hang on to that bar as long as you could. And one by one, people would just, their grip would eventually give out and they'd fall into the water, and you were just hanging in there, hanging onto that bar. It was awesome to watch. What about some other events? I know you've pulled semi-trucks, the Atlas Stones, and I see a picture of you online right now just flipping a car over, and you're like pushing it.
Yeah, well, that was one of my records. I overturned a 3,200-pound car in 32 seconds. Rolled it over twice. I had to do it twice. I had to turn it over and sit it down, run around, and turn it, sit it back over. I pulled 7 semi trucks. Actually, I pulled it in the dead of the winter, and that was in Fargo, North Dakota. And everything was slippery. The brakes, the burns was frozen on the semi trucks. It was lost, but I practiced pulling those trucks at nighttime, like 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd have 500 people in the parking lots. And when I was practicing to break these records, I'd have people come and just see it, bring their kids and stuff. And I was listening to some of these guys here, and they're dead on the money. These guys are dead on the money. And but I took in 10 to 12,000 calories a day. I mean, I went to these buffet bars. That's where I took in my calories. and I was weighing 370 or something. And then next thing I know, I never weighed any. I didn't weigh anymore. And when me and Magnus had to go to Fox's studio in California to do the Guinness World Record, I told him I weighed 370, and Magnus said he weighed 290. And I stepped on the scales, I weighed 420. But I didn't know, hey, Magnus weighed 330. So they said, where's this 370 and 290? I said, man, I ain't been on the scales in years. And I haven't, and I felt the same, and everything, it didn't change. I didn't, it was my way I felt, and I never really got hurt, but I was the oldest athlete. I was 10 years older than most of the Magnus and all them. I was 10 years older than them guys.
I remember Magnus. He was a legend in this sport, right? Magnus,
Yes,
he's a big
Magnus.
name.
Yeah,
Iron
Magnus.
Bear, Pembroke, North Carolina, Robson County. Tell me more about the Lumbee community, and do you work with youth, or do you? I
Well,
imagine you're a famous person there.
I traveled. I traveled all over Canada and setting up camps. I was setting up camps, and the thing of it is um, Native American business people do not sponsor. They they don't even sponsor athletes, and that's one of the things that they should do. Because we have Native kids could go on to the World's Strongest Man, can go on the NFL, Major League Baseball. Here, I work with the kids here, and got some kids in the NFL. I got some kids in uh, Major League Baseball. Basketball. Um, hey, it's just all in the training. Hey, not only that, I took many people out of wheelchairs. Many people. So, with all my training and with all my background, I knew the things that you needed to do to be successful. Like these guys talking about flexibility work, you got to do flexibility work. There's no other choice. You're not going to make it if you don't do flexibility work. And it's Native kids, they don't like training hard. I mean, this is a lot of work. If you want to win, or if you want to be there, you got to train. There's no ifs and ands about it.
Iron Bear, do you still work out and train?
Yes, I do. I train 5 days a week, and I was getting ready for the Nationals year before last, and the hurricane came through, and there wasn't no room, so I came back home. I broke all the records in the senior citizens and all that. I took all these guys' records.
How do you keep from getting hurt?
A lot of flexibility work and knowing when to stop and when to go. I have like 3 days just heavy, just 3 days, that's it. And the rest of the week is repetitions. So I don't go over that, because if you want to get hurt, if you try to train heavy 5 days a week, you're going to get hurt. So I train 3 days a week heavy. That's it. And everything else is light number repetitions. And I'll be in the gym ripping 505 for 15 reps, but that was light. You know what I mean? That was just light. But going over 515, 600, now that was heavy. And so that's what I call heavy. But I was one of these athletes. I loved heavyweight. I loved it. But after I started getting in my 40s, I understand that I only need to train heavy 3 days a week and train hard. Now, transfer trucks, I pull them like once or twice a week. I done stuff for King Fahd in Dubai. I was there for 3 weeks working with them over there. I mean, I traveled about every country, just like a other boy. He traveled, he knows. So I had pulled one of them giant dump trucks over there. So life is very short, and you can make it shorter or you can make it longer.
All right, and with that, we're out of time. We're going to have to wrap up the conversation. Appreciate all of our guests who joined us today. Strong men from the U.S. and Canada. Harold Iron Bear Collins, Jerry Pritchett, and Colton Sloan. Join us again tomorrow for more conversation about Indigenous news and current events. I'm your host, Sean Spruce.
Skugtash, For more than 40 years, Ramona Farms has revived ancient traditional foods, tepary beans, pinoli, polentas, and more, all from store.ramonafarms.com. Ramona Farms supports this show. Omnie. Addiction, anxiety, and depression can be rooted in ancestral emotional baggage passed down through generations. That cycle can be broken with an energy healing experience available to all at resvolution.com. Discover Healing supports this show. Who protects Indian country? Amerind does. As the only 100% tribally owned insurance carrier, Amerind helps strengthen tribal communities by providing reliable insurance coverage and keeping dollars in Indian country. From property and liability to commercial auto and tribal workers' compensation, Amerind is here to protect what matters. Celebrating 40 years of serving Indian country. Learn more at amerind.com. That's AMERIND.com.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.